Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Building a Data-Driven Culture in Construction. We are glad that you're able to join us today as we discuss how you can help build a data-driven culture in your organization with a focus on construction industry. My name is Shulpa Sharma. I am the Vice President of Analytics and Operations at Trillium Advisory Group. I have over 12 years of experience working with various global organizations on strategic planning initiatives. I got my start working at a natural gas trade floor where I worked with big data even before it was called that. I believe in the power of data and truly enjoy telling stories with numbers. At Trillium, I'm leading the automation and digitalization of analytics on global construction projects, and I'm helping equip senior executives with real-time insights on project performance. Giving back to the community is quite important to me. I sit on the board of the Calgary Homeless Foundation, and I'm helping them on their journey to digitalization as well. I'm an active member of CII's data analytics community and the Institute of Corporate Directors of Canada. The construction industry is not well known for leveraging big data effectively, nor for using leading-edge analytics to make informed business decisions in a nimble way. A 2019 McKinsey study found that 45% of construction professionals report spending more time than expected on non-optimal activities such as rework, fixing mistakes, looking for siloed project data, and conflict management. This is not the best use of their time or talent. Viewpoint, in their article, Trends in Data Analytics in Construction, say that construction sites these days have no shortage of data. Design and BIM data from the planning stages of a project, job site data collected by variables, mobile devices and sensors on equipment and materials, accounting and job progress data from the office, project management data, and much, much more. Many contractors are practically drowning in data and don't have the right tools to parse and analyze the data in ways that would have meaningful impacts on their projects. Therefore, this industry provides us a huge opportunity to change this. How is exactly the question we will answer today. Within this presentation, we will explore how you can build a data-driven culture in your organization to reduce time loss and improve safety, productivity, and overall project performance potential. We will first begin by defining what a data-driven organization looks like. What are some of the challenges in creating it? And then we will dive deeper into how we can create it. I have been quite invested in exploring answers to these questions myself. An interesting presentation from Avinash Kaushik at Google Conversion University, my personal experience from working in organizations which have embarked upon this journey of building a data-driven culture, and a vast amount of research formulates the content of this presentation. My goal for you is to gain some actionable insights from this presentation today. Let's discuss what a data-driven organization looks like. Gecko Board, in their global survey on the state of data-driven culture within startups, define a data-driven organization as: a data-driven organization is one that cultivates a culture where data is valued as much as intuition and experience, where data is visible and accessible to everybody. A data-driven organization uses technology to communicate data in a clear and approachable way. In this kind of an organization, decision-making is a collaborative process, and metrics are set based on specific business goals. You may ask, why is it so important to create a data-driven culture? Executives are tasked with transforming their business during these challenging times with a focus on building resilience and future-proofing the organization. The most successful companies have one common denominator: a culture where data is built into the foundation of the organization, shifting the way people work and make decisions. And therefore, building a data-driven culture in your organization is important more than ever. Specifically, a data-driven culture helps you grow your revenue. The importance of data in decision lies in consistency and continual growth. You evolve your empire over time, making your organization more adaptable as a result. It helps you understand your business better. Data-based decisions enable companies to create new business opportunities, predict future trends, optimize current operational efforts, and produce actionable insights. It helps you make proactive, confident, and unbiased decisions. This way, your decisions are based on facts and not just intuition alone. In construction, obviously, the upside to data-based decision making is far greater than just positive impact to the bottom line. In an industry where safety is everyone's priority, data-driven culture helps in reducing risk, increasing safety, and can actually save lives. Let's explore some of the challenges you may face when you embark upon this journey. How many of you have faced data-related challenges in your current or previous organization? I'd guess the answer is close to 100%. Unfortunately, we are all too familiar with situations such as one department telling another, "Oh, we are the generators of that data set. Unfortunately, we cannot share it with you." Or, "We have never used our data in that fashion. We only do it this way." Or worse yet, different definitions of the same metric doing rounds in different departments. It is largely due to a missing data culture. A Harvard Business Review article written about the survey identifies some of the potential roadblocks that companies that want to make the leap to being data-driven may encounter. It identified that the pursuit of short-term financial goals, pushing longer-term objectives like data-based cultures to the back burner is one possible roadblock. Additionally, large-scale digital transformation failures by high-profile companies make executives wary to try similar transformations of their own. Data shows that adoption of initiatives, cultural resistance to change, issues with people and processes, and a lack of organization alignment around data goals are the biggest challenges companies face when trying to shift toward a culture that embraces and is driven by data. However, there are senior executives who advocate for the better and continued use of data for decision making. But let's say that if leaders are failing to recognize the impact integrating data into operational workflows can have on organization, what are some things you as an analyst or analytics manager do at your level to help create a data culture? Well, one idea is to take a more iterative, phased approach, tackling individual data initiatives within the organization rather than to try and change the overall culture all at one time. Companies can also try creating their own in-house educational programs that focus on teaching the importance and impact of using data effectively in different roles, including frontline employees. Lastly, you can follow some of the simple guidelines I have presented today. How to create a data-driven culture in your organization. The first step in trying to create a data-driven culture in your organization is by focusing on the outcome. In my experience, I have seen a lot of analysts focus on the wrong metrics or too granular a metric which fails to gain traction from the leadership team from the get-go. I wonder if you've heard of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. Explore those 20% factors in your data that solve 80% of the problems. Always start with the big picture first, before delving down into the nitty-gritty. You may ask why. Executives or leaders generally respond more positively to you when you show them analytics that will help them increase their bottom line. It's just that simple. Like we had discussed earlier, people respond to you when you help them increase productivity, quality, performance, and in case of construction, safety metrics. Start with simple descriptive analyses and answer the question, what is going on? Whip up quick data warehouse and focus on simplest, more relevant metrics. Do not wait for 100% fully validated data set. That is like finding the goose that laid golden eggs, the probability of which is next to nil. A lot of time we hear how data is garbage, but it is important to understand that that is an insight in itself. What about the data is garbage? How can we put better processes around data collection such that the quality of our data gets better? These are all important questions to answer. Let's take an example in the construction industry. If I were to focus on some simple metrics on, let's say, Project X for an ABC construction company, I would start with the status of work. What percentage of work is being done on plan, early, or late? I'd then provide key takeaways from my findings, such as, on average, about 70% of planned work is running behind schedule. Obviously, this is a big insight and will draw attention immediately. Another element that I'd add is how behind is that 70% of planned work. The graph on the right-hand side speaks to that. It looks like the 70% of work is running approximately 1 year behind schedule. Over time, I would add trending to this data set. Perhaps flesh out a week-over-week analysis or a month-over-month analysis, and provide more context for comparison. In another industry, for example, you could focus on revenues or costs over time. The goal here is to first draw attention by talking about key important metrics and then report on them consistently over a period. Let people get used to looking at similar metrics over time. That way, they keep coming back to you for those same metrics. Now that you have people's attention, what next? By focusing on the outcome, you answered the question, what is going on? The next natural step in reporting would be then to dive into your data and answer the question, why? What is causing for that 70% planned work to run behind schedule? Your revenues are down year over year. What is the reason behind that? Diving into that is focusing on the drivers of your outcome. For example, we look at what is driving that 70% late work on Project X. Piping and structural steel areas seem to be largely running on plan. Structural steel does seem like it has some hiccups, but isn't the biggest driver of that spike causing late work. It turns out that it's electrical work that seems to be driving that big spike. In this manner, we continue the exercise to conduct deep dive into these drivers until we isolate the root cause of, for example, in our case, late work or drop in revenues. We do that until we end up with actionable insights. Great! Now you have your big picture overview. You have answered the question, what is going on? Why? So what comes next? Well, here comes the fun part. Storytelling with data. McKinsey, in their 2018 article Analytics Translators, the new must-have role, describe analytical translators as translators are neither data architects nor data engineers. They're not even necessarily dedicated analytics professionals and don't possess deep technical expertise in programming or modeling. Instead, translators play a critical role in bridging the technical expertise of data engineers and data scientists with the operational expertise of marketing, supply chain, manufacturing, risk, and other frontline managers. In their role, translators help ensure that the deep insights generated through sophisticated analytics translate into impact at scale in an organization. Unfortunately, data storytelling is one highly critical skill that many teams lack. Just like any other skill, though, with right training and knowledge, this expertise can be developed within the team. For this reason, deck building is an art. We're all too familiar with scenarios such as this one. A confused leader who does not quite understand the slide, or you're stuck explaining to them what your chart means. Several minutes later, there's only more confusion and frustration in the room. Heck, I'll even talk about myself here. I have been in situations such as this one. I'm very proud of my machine learning model. I want you to see all the fancy autocorrelation and heteroskedasticity tests I have run on my data and want to showcase all of my hard work. This is not so hard, right? Well, not quite. Simplify the messaging. Never confuse your audience with complicated charts and graphs. The easier the graph, the better of a storyteller you are. Start with a crisp executive summary and findings of your analyses right up front. Lastly, always focus on the what, the why, and the so what in your deck. So what, interestingly, is an extremely ignored question as well. So let's go back to our Project X example from earlier and see how we would add the so what. We saw earlier that the planned work was running 70% behind schedule, driven largely due to lag in electrical work. Essentially, we explained the what and the why, but we left out the so what. As you can see here, the so what in this case would be, if nothing changes on the project and things continue to run the way they are, Project X's cost could increase by 80% more than planned, and it may take 50% more time to finish this project. This right here is the so what. Always connect your analyses and tie it back to so what. Why should anyone care? Why should an executive care? The so what is the fuel that lights that fire for everyone in the team to start acting. Depersonalize decision making. This is the next thing I want to talk about. Avinash Kaushik, in his talk, Creating a Data-Driven Culture, said something that truly stood out to me. He talks extensively about how we, as analysts, need to depersonalize decision making. While we are closest to the data and understand it more than anybody else, we're also biased towards our findings. They are our findings after all. Being biased is a natural tendency that we all possess, but it must be reduced as much as possible to take better decisions. I come from a hedge fund world. One of my traders would always challenge my models, my assumptions, and would essentially rip my findings apart. It would drive me nuts. However, I learned an extremely important skill from him. He taught me that I should be the biggest critic of my model and analyses. He said, "You defending your model or assumptions reeks of insecurity. As analysts, we should be grateful for leaders and team members who challenge our assumptions. They're offering insight into our model, which we may not have had otherwise. Apart from being open to feedback, challenging our model, and being its biggest critic, what else can we do to depersonalize decision making? Well, here are a few things you can do. You can include industry standards and benchmarks to contextualize your findings. You can include historical metrics on other internal projects to show how this new project is performing. And lastly, build out trending in your analyses over time. A number without context or history is exactly that, just a number. It does not mean much. In our example from earlier, this is how benchmarking would work. Our projections on ABC Construction's Project X suggest that if nothing changes, there will be a 50% schedule increase and an 80% cost increase. If we compare this to the industry standard for similar size projects, usually schedules increase by 20% and cost go up by 80%. While our cost increase projections, although bad, are still in line with the industry standards, schedule increases more than double. Your insight that the schedule slippage will be detrimental to project's health is not your personal finding anymore. You have provided context to your metrics and proofs in the pudding now. This slide basically tells the executives how the projects suck without you explicitly saying it. You have successfully depersonalized the messaging, my friend. So far, we have focused a lot on what the analysts should do. They must start by looking at the big picture first, then dive deeper into the drivers, then tell that story with data, and never forget to emphasize the so what. We also discussed how they should not be biased towards their findings and also depersonalize the message. What we are going to focus on now is what the leaders must do to help create that data-driven culture. Leaders must empower analysts on the team. Like they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. And culture starts from top. Leadership needs to be data-driven in order to create that data-driven culture within the organization. Give your analysts, your data scientists, the right tools to help them do the right thing. Many times, we see data being used as a crutch for leaders to prove out a certain biased idea that they have in their minds. Well, that's the opposite of data-driven culture. Data should be used to drive decisions. In this case, data comes first, and then comes decision based on that data. Let analysts be true to their findings. And leaders, you must have the heart to hear out findings that you don't like. Here, leaders, listen up. 1. Hire the right talent. Hire people with the right mix of technical and people skill. While technical skills are a big part of analytics, working with stakeholders to soundboard and gather ideas is equally important. 2. Provide the analysts the freedom to dig in. Not all hypotheses that you test will yield results, especially in predictive analyses. Sometimes you do not get the desired results, and that should be okay. There's a certain taboo attached to failure. We all need to build a culture of being okay to fail as long as we fail up. 3. Provide your team with time and resources necessary. Understand that model building and predictive analysis takes time. It cannot be whipped up overnight. I'm going to leave you all with this one last thought for today. Business should be the owner of analyses and not the IT department. This may be controversial. Although it sounds intuitive, there is a lot of internal dynamics between IT and analytics teams, which is not necessarily productive. A lot of ETL processes still sit with IT, which creates unnecessary silos. With new powerful BI tools, analysts should own the ETL process with little to no transformation happening in the IT department. IT and analytics departments should clearly define what each one of them will own and stick with a consistent process. For those who are interested in learning more about the articles or studies that have been referenced to in this webinar, you can find them here on the following reference list. That marks the end of our presentation today. We will now open up the floor to questions. If you have a question, please post it to the question feed in the webinar Q&A field. Also, if you're more interested in learning about how Trillium is helping companies on their journey of digitalization and helping them build a data-driven culture, please visit us at www.trilliumgroup.io and follow us on LinkedIn for content related to upcoming webinars.